Today my guest is Jason Farrell. Jason, how you doing?
Nice to meet you, Dave.
What do you do?
Well, I work for a large retail company as a systems analyst, and in my spare time I like to do some Android development. I help out with some friends and some other companies doing their mobile applications.
All right, and we're here at Codestock in Knoxville, Tennessee, where this morning you gave a talk on Android development.
Yes.
And tomorrow you're giving another talk on Android development.
Yes, this morning was my introductory talk, and the next one kind of builds on that. Kind of talks about taking your applications to the next level, adding notifications, adding theming, and really kind of adding some more polish to your application.
Okay. This is interesting to me because your day job at the retailer, it's you're writing code, but you're not writing Java code, right?
No.
And Android is primarily Java code.
Correct.
What's the appeal?
Well, mobile in general has a great appeal to me. You look at the transition from in the early 90s to the web in the mid 90s and today, where all these applications kind of increase their reach by going to the web, and now you're taking that to the next step with mobile. And mobile really is kind of the next frontier for us. I really believe it's the next thing. So.
All right. So what do we need to think about? No, I'm aware that mobile is a big deal. It's, I see more and more people with smartphones. Sometimes this is a Windows phone. You've got a Droid. Apparently, Apple has a smartphone.
Apparently, yeah, it's a small one. I don't know.
Nokia is going to come out with a bunch of smartphones in the near future, given their deal with
Microsoft.
I haven't written an app for the phone. I need to start thinking about that. What kind of things do I need to think about?
Well, writing an app is it's an interesting thing, and it's really kind of amazing. Some of the ideas, like there's an application here that's quite ingenious called Conftron. Wasn't written by myself, but it's an idea that I've kind of seen where you think about all these uses you have right now for like paper schedules and whatnot, and making your schedule. A phone can do that for you, and it can be on you at all times. And in my second talk, one of the big points I make is mobile users are different than normal users.
How so?
Well, with a laptop user, generally I don't have to think about him walking down the street and possibly getting hit by a car.
Okay.
Because as a mobile user, you're doing this.
All right.
And the way the application has to work is a more mobile-centric way, because the phone could be anywhere on the person's body.
Okay.
Whereas the laptop, the person's usually going to be sitting in one spot, preferably out of the way of traffic. And
wait, I'm unclear. What does the risk of traffic injury have to do with the developer?
Well, as a developer, that's kind of a little joke I have that I was in New York City doing some consulting, and I happened to watch a guy, no joke, actually walking towards the subway. He fell down the stairs because he was on his phone waiting for it to load something.
So you blame the developer for that?
I don't blame the developer.
It's not the poor UI that hypnotized the guy?
But the idea is to understand that your users are different than normal users.
Okay, just acknowledge the difference then.
Yeah, exactly. That the way people are going to use your app is going to be different than how they used your web page.
Okay, give me an example though of what specifically I need to think about when I'm designing it. Not just a Droid application, but any phone application.
Well, let's take an application like Twitter.
Yeah.
Do you walk around all day hitting refresh?
No.
Your phone tells you when something's wrong.
So that push is a big advantage,
Yes.
especially on the phone.
And you can have push on the desktop, but normally the application has to be running or something has to be kind of going on behind the scenes.
Okay, all right, that's a good point. All right, well, let's move to the Droid in particular.
Okay.
I want to get started. I'm like you actually, in the sense that during the day I write .NET code. And when you got started in doing Droid development, did you have Java experience?
Only a little bit, and it came from my college education.
Uh-huh.
But
It's been a few years since you'd been, because you're like, what, 50?
50, 28. But
I'm playing with you. You look good.
Try. I work out.
So, all right, enough flirting. What was my question again?
I don't remember. But
we're talking about Java. So, Droid natively, writing a native Droid application is going to be written in Java. Mm-hmm. And you had been a few years removed from just some classroom Java experience. How was that? How was that?
Well, Java and .NET share a lot of similarities. I often tell people that writing in Java does make me appreciate .NET more, just because Java, I like Java, but it doesn't have some of the same helpers that C# does, like link and lambdas and whatnot. Well, not explicitly lambdas, but Java has some of its own advantages. And just really got me into it was Code Bash.
Code Bash,
Big
conference in Sandusky at the Indoor Water Park.
And they actually, what they did was they posted their REST feeds online. I thought, it'd be kind of cool to write an application that could schedule all the sessions I wanted to go to.
Oh, so that was your first application, was writing the Android app?
Yeah, a couple years ago, and then I wrote another one last year that was pretty successful. And I wanted to write one for CodeStock, but I didn't have time.
Yeah. So now maybe I'm where you were a few years ago, except I don't have a computer science degree. But I'm a .NET guy. I think I know C# pretty well. And I'd like to get started writing applications for Android. What do I need to do? What's step one?
Your best resource is going to be developer.android.com. It's the central developer site for all things Android. And they have tutorials on there as far as setting up Eclipse. And
Eclipse is?
Eclipse is a general purpose IDE that relies on plugins. It's actually Java based.
Okay.
And it's kind of one of the de facto Java editors for most people.
Okay. So just like I use Visual Studio to do my .NET and C# development, I would use Eclipse for doing my Java.
I always recommend people start off with Eclipse because Google supports a tool called Android Developer Tool, which you can download and install into Eclipse, and that gives you all the integration with all their tooling.
Okay, so they get those two. You can install Eclipse, install Google's Android Developer Tool.
And then you're off and running.
And then I'm off and running. Is it, I haven't used Eclipse before. Is it file, new project, and I have an emulator and a phone? And
yeah, pretty much. And Eclipse can handle all the emulator setup and everything for you. It's quite nice now. And then as you proceed through it, what I often say is when you get started with Android, use Eclipse.
Okay.
But as you begin to kind of get further and further into the development and understanding your tools, you begin to see that you don't want to be with Eclipse. So myself personally, I use IntelliJ.
IntelliJ, that's a different
IDE.
Okay.
It doesn't have as much integration, although JetBrains is adding a lot to it.
Okay.
And getting substantially better. But
all right, and Eclipse is free. IntelliJ is not. Isn't that right?
IntelliJ is also free.
Oh, it's free. Okay.
There are two versions of IntelliJ, and the Community Edition is free.
Okay, that's the one you're using.
Yes.
All right. And why would you move away from Eclipse into that?
Well, my big thing is when you're doing a lot of this programming, it's helpful when you're doing the XML program to have some level of IntelliSense and code completion. Okay. And while Eclipse offers it, it's very it's not quite as fluid as IntelliJ is.
Okay. All right. Well, keep going. Tell me about the structure of an application. What does it look like?
So an application in Android is made up of activities. So you have a base class, a class called activity, that all your activities will handle from. An activity is more or less a screen.
Okay.
So one screen, one activity, usually.
Okay.
The activities themselves can have content. And the content is basically the layout that the screen conforms to, and that's written in XML. And I don't know if there's a special name for it or not, but I just call it layout XML.
Okay.
So, and that's comprised of views, and these views are essentially analogous to controls in the Windows world.
Okay. It sounds a lot like XAML.
Almost identical. It's very similar to XAML. Not quite as flexible as XAML, but very similar.
Okay. And where's the code go?
Code goes in the activity. So essentially, the activity more or less serves as the code behind to the app.
XML?
The XML, there you go, yeah. And in there you can set up event listeners, and you can respond to user interaction through by referencing the ID of the view that the user is interacting with.
Okay.
So that kind of makes sense. It's kind of like in .NET you would have said, ASP.NET style, ID equals something, run at server. Okay. Then you go in the behind, you'd say, okay, that ID dot this, or you'd have a click event.
Right.
You wire it up. Same kind of concept.
Okay, so most of your time is spent getting this XML to display the controls properly on the page, and then wiring up code to run in response to user events.
Yes.
Like a button clicker. They still call it a click, right? When I touch a button with my finger.
Yeah.
Button press, I guess.
Yeah, maybe a button press. A little Apple calls it a touch.
Okay.
Two words, potato, essentially.
Right. Okay. What else?
Well, so once you have all that stuff in place, usually I use like, I mean, that would give you a simple application, really. I mean,
So describe the code match application that you built.
So
how many activities were in it?
yeah, it had about 5 activities, and what it would do is it would kind of go out and pre-cache the REST feeds themselves.
Okay.
Basically, it would go out and you'd use async tasks to download the REST feeds, format them into like these objects.
This happened when you launched the application.
Yes, so there's like a little splash screen and whatnot saying, hey, I'm doing something. And I would try to kind of keep that data locally so that they weren't going out all the time to get it. But the thing about code mesh is there are inevitably schedule changes. You want your app to reflect that. So.
Okay, so to reflect it, you'd have to shut down the application, restart it. It would go out
You just got to
fetch those.
You have to just refetch the data.
Yeah, but yours did it on startup, so that particular application, you would shut it down.
Well, I mean, within it, I would have like a polling timer that would say, oh, it's been 15 minutes, it's just, let's
Oh, I see, okay, all right. So that's pretty cool. And now, I think there are, 800 or 900 people at CodeMesh last couple of years.
700.
700?
Mm-hmm.
Do you know how many people downloaded your app?
I had about 300 to 400 downloads.
That's awesome, wow.
So.
Talk to me about the deployment process. So you're testing it on on an emulator.
And the device.
And on the device, but that doesn't help me. You need to get it somewhere that I can download it from, right? How does that work in the Droid world?
Well, I do want to speak to the fact that Android has certain the device specifications aren't quite as strong as say a Windows Phone 7 or an iPhone, so you have to do a lot more testing because, for example, Windows Phone 7 supports WVGA 400, WVGA 480, and then what they do for their tablets yet. So that's 2 resolutions, whereas Android must support QVGA, HVGA, WVGA 400, WVGA 480, and XVGA being the tablet resolution.
Okay, so I think what you're saying is that there are a lot more variations in the hardware of an Android than there are in a Windows Phone 7.
Correct.
And that makes it harder. You've got to test each one of those variations.
And
of course, Apple has basically one format because they control all the hardware.
Exactly. So I read that, I believe it was Reveal, said they had to test Angry Birds on 15 different devices before they ever launched it to the marketplace.
Did you do that? Did you test it on 15 devices?
I did not test it on 15 devices. It was tested on 2.
Okay, all right. All right, well, let's talk about the deployment process.
So the deployment process with Android is pretty simple compared to iPhone and Windows Phone 7. $25 one time for life. As of right now, Google hasn't done anything to change that. And there's no review process, which is both a good thing and a bad thing, because it means your app gets there almost instantaneously, but...
There's a lot of crap out there.
Yeah. And there are some security concerns with that as well. Yeah. I mean, most of the...
Is there any process in place at all to prevent me from writing malware and publishing it?
Feedback. Their feedback system's about the only way. And there has been some rumors going around that Google is thinking about changing that, but to change that kind of goes against the principles of Android, so just being open
so
and
they've
free.
kind of crowdsourced that vetting process.
More or less. And their hope is that the good apps bubble up and the bad apps trickle down.
That's kind of tough with something like a CodeMash app because it has, by definition, a very limited lifespan.
Yeah.
It's only relevant until CodeMash is over.
Correct. And
not enough time to get that feedback. Really.
Yeah, and I mean, the idea is that they now that's not to say Google doesn't go through and occasionally, do auditing on its apps, but they certainly don't touch every single app that's on the marketplace.
Okay, so the Google Marketplace is a place that I can get to from the web and from my phone. Right?
Yes, though more accurately from your phone, you can't. I've never tried downloading an app from the web, but that's not to say you couldn't.
Yeah, I haven't seen. I guess I'm comparing it to like for Windows, they have the Zoom Marketplace. There's actually a piece of software that runs on your computer.
Yeah,
and you can get music that way, and I assume you can get apps that way. I actually don't know.
I'm hoping to get I'm going to be complimenting this guy with a trophy in July, hopefully, when Verizon lets me get a phone at a discounted rate, and I'm looking forward to that.
What else can you tell us?
Well, the big news that I've been reading about recently is Ice Cream Sandwich, which is the new version of it. See, Google likes to name all their OSs after sweets. They have cupcake, donut, eclair, frozen yogurt, gingerbread, honeycomb.
Okay.
Actually, when I give the intro talk, a lot of times I'll bring in a bunch of sweets for everybody.
Nice.
So
That's tomorrow then, huh?
I couldn't do that today because I flew into Knoxville, and airport officials don't always look kindly upon bringing lots of food through the.
So well, you wouldn't know it to look at me, but I'm a man that enjoys his sweets.
I don't doubt that for a second. Actually,
what is ice cream sandwich? What is that?
Ice cream sandwich is slated to be the next version of the of the Android OS released to the phones. Honeycomb was 3.0 and was released to the tablets. The reason a lot of us in the Android community are excited about this is Matias Duarte, the former lead designer, or was involved with the WebOS project from Palm, is helping to redo the entire Android UI, which has long been considered a weakness in its battle against the iPhone.
Okay.
So, and one of the things that is rumored in this particular release of Android is consolidation of the Android OS into two branches. One which people are allowed to modify freely, and another one that Google controls exclusively to kind of put them in line with against Apple and Microsoft.
Interesting. And what does that come out?
With Google, you never know.
Oh, okay. It hasn't been released even in the beta. Although things
it might be out in beta. I haven't read it. I haven't had a chance to check.
Okay. All right. That's a good introduction. I think people have enough to get started. You mentioned what was the site again? Where for resources?
Developer.android.com.
Okay. And do you have an online presence?
Jay Farrell on Twitter, and my blog is jfarrell.net.
Are you blogging about Android development?
I blog about a lot of things, Android development being one of them.
All right, Jason, thank you so much.
Thank you, Dave. Appreciate it. Great to be friends with technology on Technology and Friends.